All right, so the year is 2026. We're almost at the 10-year anniversary of Pokemon Go. And even though the game has been around for quite a while, I feel like there are some tips and tricks that I feel like people could maybe benefit from if they didn't know about these things. And just to be clear, these tips and tricks are meant to be helpful for the more casual player, or even for people that are just getting into Pokemon Go as of the last, I don't know, within the last couple of years, probably. So I figured I would go over what I believe are the 5 most useful and effective tips and tricks that every Pokemon Go player should know. But before we get into that, we do have some news, because today is March 31st, and an event was announced, 22 days ago, but it starts tonight as of recording. So here we have an event called A Shockingly Good Time. Electric-type Pokemon are charging up. Trainers, get ready for an electrifying event featuring electric-type Pokemon during a shockingly good time. So this event runs from Tuesday, March 31st, which is today, at 10 a.m. to Monday, April 6th, 2026 at 8 p.m. local time. Electric-type Pokemon take over. Event-themed Pokemon like Pikachu, Chinchou, Dedenne, Pawmi, and more will appear in the wild. You'll also have an increased chance of encountering shiny Pikachu, shiny Chinchou, and shiny Dedenne. And then for this event, there's also a Go Pass, which means that there's also a Go Pass Deluxe to go with it, of course. And it says from Tuesday, March 31st at 10 a.m. to Monday, April 6th at 8 p.m. local time, you can collect Go points, increase your rank, and unlock themed rewards like Stardust, XP, Pokeballs, candy, and more. So obviously, just like before, I did buy the Go Pass Deluxe. I believe it's $5 or $7 if you want to gift it to someone. And I'll try my best to get through as much of it as possible, because for the bug out one, I was able to get to the end of the regular kind of rewards where it's up to rank 30. And then you had the additional stuff beyond level or rank 30 all the way up to rank 60, which rank 60 gave you, I believe it was a Shedinja encounter, or 2 Shedinja encounters probably, or maybe it was 3, I can't remember. But just like with the bug out one, this one is also going to be where you go up to rank 30 for the normal stuff, and then you go all the way to 60 for additional bonuses, including an encounter at the end, which we can take a look at right here. So if you look at view rewards, I'm already up to rank 3. So here it ends at rank 30, which it's said to believe that Mimikyu would be the featured Pokemon there at rank 30. And then if we tap on the bonus ones, it's just like how it normally would be with the Stardust. But then once you get to 60, you have 2 encounters here that are just not shown, because I think it only shows if you've encountered the Pokemon before. I could be wrong. I have caught pretty much almost all the Pokemon in the game. So this would tell me that they're keeping it hidden on purpose, which is why I'm saying that, and which is why a lot of people are saying that this is Mimikyu. But I'm sure as the week goes on, that people will of course discover that it probably was. So up next we have the major milestones. As you progress through your Go Pass, you will unlock major milestones, including the following bonuses. In Tier 1, you have incense activated during the event will last up to twice as long, so it'll be for 2 hours instead of 1 hour. In Tier 2, for the basic one, you have double catch candy, and then for the Go Pass Deluxe, you have double Stardust for successfully catching Pokemon. So if you do buy the Go Pass Deluxe, you should be able to get both. I would assume that this means that you get both. So you get double candy for catching, and then double the Stardust. So for something like this, it's recommended that you use Lucky Eggs and Stardust if you're gonna go out and catch Pokemon while taking advantage of these bonuses, which is something that we'll go over during the tips and tricks for this video. And then this is gonna be something that's new for specifically this event. So you have, instead of you know how there's the Spotlight Hour every Tuesday? Well, this time for this event, it's gonna be a daily thing where every day between March 31st and April 6th, there's going to be a Spotlight Hour between 6 and 7 p.m. with tonight, which is happening actually right now as I'm recording this. Mareep is going to be the featured Pokemon for the Spotlight Hour. And then we have, starting April 1st, we have Pikachu, which is tomorrow. And then April 2nd, Magnemite. April 3rd, Chinchou. Is it Chinchou? I know I said Chinchou twice. It's probably Chinchou. It's probably Chinchou. April 4th, we have Pawmi. April 5th, we have Dedenne. And then April 6th, we have Joltik. And then here we have all the Mareep that are popping up here. So this is actually a very good time to jump into the first tip of this video, which is the quick catch exploit. All right, so the quick catch exploit is a pretty simple thing to do. So all you have to do is when you encounter a Pokemon, the best way to execute this is to use, depending on if you're a lefty or a righty. In this case, I'm a righty, so I'm going to use my left thumb. I'm going to pull the Pokeball menu here. You see here on the bottom right corner. I'm going to use my left thumb to pull that, and then with my right hand, with my throwing finger, my throwing thumb, I'm going to throw the Pokeball, release my left thumb, and then just run away. Because when you do that, when you go to pull the menu, it brings up the other UI, such as the AR, the run away on the top left corner, and that lets you quickly run away from a Pokemon without you having to sit through the entire animation like I just did right there. So I can pull that with my left thumb from the bottom left corner, or if you're a left-handed person, you can pull with your right thumb from the berry menu, pull, and use your left thumb to throw, and then once the ball lands, just let go, run away, and in a little bit, I would say, wait until after you've caught all the Pokemon in your vicinity to then check if you've caught everything. Because what might also happen is that the Pokemon might stay on the overworld, so then all you would do is tap on the Pokemon if it's still there. Now, over the last couple of years, they have made it so that way once a Pokemon is caught, it does not stay in the overworld as soon as you go back into the overworld. Like just then, I didn't catch the Mareep, so if I would have ran away, it would have stayed on the map. So I'll do the rest for these, and then we'll go ahead and move on to a related tip that's going to make organizing your Pokemon box a little bit easier. So that way it's not just a bit of a cluttered mess, and you can go through the Pokemon that you caught recently, keep the ones that you want to keep, and then get rid of the ones that you don't. So once you've caught the Pokemon, here I've got the 8 Mareep. I think that the best way to sort your Pokemon is by favorites. Don't do it by recent, do it by favorite, and make sure that it's with the arrow pointing up. And what sorting by favorite does is it allows you to put all the Pokemon that you recently caught up towards the top. And then once you favorite a Pokemon, then that Pokemon disappears from being towards the top here. Because if you do it by recent, if I choose this Mareep with the 12 CP, if I favorite it, it's going to stay there. It's going to be there on the second row, the first one. But once I put favorite, now that Mareep is gone, the one with the 12 CP. So if I go back, unfavorite it, and sort back by favorite, there you go. Now it'll be there. Now what I normally like to do is start from the bottom, the one with, because what it does is it sorts it from CP also. So I would start from the bottom, the one with the lowest CP, and then go ahead and just check for IVs if you want to, see what's worth keeping and what's not worth keeping. In this case, everything is not worth keeping, so I'm going to go ahead and just transfer everything. Now all the most recent Pokemon that I caught are not going to show up there anymore. Now, of course, like I said, when you do favorite a Pokemon, it gets buried into this, so that way it's out of sight and out of mind, and you don't have to worry about it. All right, so then once you've kept the Pokemon that you've caught, the ones that you wanted to keep, what you can do is use tags and the search filters to kind of organize or look for specific Pokemon or Pokemon with specific moves when you need them. So here in the Tags tab, I have Pokemon like my favorites, which this is just there by default. I didn't create this one, the game just does it automatically. And then I have Pokemon that I want to trade away, which I haven't really utilized too much of. And then I have my Hundos, which hasn't been updated in a little while. I have Shiny Pokemon, which also hasn't been updated in a little while. Shiny that are 3 stars in terms of stats. Nundos, which I have 12 of, that's up to date. Pokemon that I've hatched that were Hundos. And then Great League, Ultra League, Master League, and then Lucky Pokemon, Double XL, Double XS Pokemon, Shadow Pokemon, Purified Pokemon, D-Max, and G-Max, which I have no G-Max Pokemon at all. And the way that you would do this is you would, for example, select Pokemon here. Then on the bottom you have where it says Tag or Transfer. You want to pick Tag, and then you can either put it into an existing one or create a new tag, give it a name, label it with a color, and then you're good to go. But to me, I think that the most powerful tool that you could use within the Pokemon storage is the search. So the search can let you look for pretty much anything. So you can basically find any Pokemon you want just by using the relevant word or words in some cases. So using the search can either be the easiest thing to use or also the more confusing thing to use when it comes to some of the features in this game. So some of the easier searches you can do are, if you want to look for shiny Pokemon, you can do that by just typing in shiny and you get all the Pokemon. If you want to have your legendaries show up, you would type legendary and you would get all of your legendary Pokemon. You can even combine these. So let's say I want to find shiny Pokemon that are also my legendary Pokemon. What you would do is you would, without spaces, put the and symbol in between the two types of filters that you want to use. So here I would have all of my shiny Pokemon that are legendary, which I don't have a lot of. I just have 12. You can also look up Pokemon by their typing. So if I just type water, for example, I can have all the Pokemon that show up that are part water type. If I want to look up a steel type, I can just type steel and I'll get all the steel type Pokemon show up in the filter. But what we can also do is exclude certain Pokemon. So let's say you want to filter out all of the water type Pokemon and show everything except for that. What you would do is put the exclamation mark and then type the type that you want. So we can put water type. And then now my search does not include any water type Pokemon whatsoever. And you can even go further by putting and exclamation and then putting the next type. So let's say steel Pokemon. So now I'm gonna get everything except for, So I'm gonna get everything that is not a water type or a steel type. And I can go even further by putting, say, dragon. Now I'll have every Pokemon that isn't part water, steel, or dragon in my search. You can even use some of these recommended ones, so you don't have to actually type out shiny Pokemon if you want to. You can just put the shiny filter here and it automatically puts it. Another thing you can do is, let's say if you have it filtered to recent, so your most recent Pokemon are towards the top. You can actually put age 0 and you'll get the Pokemon that you caught within the last 24 hours. And you can expand that by putting a dash and saying, let's say you want to go back as far as 10 days, you can put 10, and it'll show you all the Pokemon you've caught within the last 10 days. You can even do 365 if you want to go back an entire year and see all the Pokemon that you've caught that you've saved since 1 year ago. So now the fourth thing that I want to go over are what you can do in your settings to make some things in Pokemon Go just a little bit better and to add some quality of life improvements that I think are worth looking into. So the first thing you want to have on are the vibration and haptics. And the reason why I say this is because when certain things in the game happen, haptics can play a role into telling you, into indicating to you what it is that you're encountering, for example. And I say encountering specifically because there are some Pokemon that have very specific tactics that you can take advantage of. So what I mean is, when you come across a shiny Pokemon or an extra large or extra small Pokemon, and you're not looking at your screen, what'll happen is the haptics on the phone that you have, if your phone has good haptics, is that it'll vibrate in sort of like in sync with the shiny animation or the other effect that occurs when you come across an XXL or XXS Pokemon. And there's a trick that I kind of noticed with the haptics, that when you're catching a Pokemon, as the ball shakes, it vibrates. And what I've noticed is that on the second shake specifically for the Pokeball, is that if there's a delay between when you see the shake and when you feel the haptic, it indicates that you are not going to catch the Pokemon. So try this out the next time that you're catching a Pokemon to see if you notice it. Because when you notice it, then you'll understand that that's a great indicator that you can use in combination, probably, if you want to, with the quick catch exploit that lets you know that you for sure caught the Pokemon, without having to double check to see if you did or not. So again, to reiterate, when the Pokeball shakes for the second time, if the haptic is out of sync with the visual of the shake, it means the Pokemon will break out. If the vibration, if the haptic is in sync with the shake, the second shake, then you have caught the Pokemon. So you can know if you caught the Pokemon before the third shake, which is really interesting. So keep that in mind when you're catching Pokemon. Now, under general, there are a few things here that I would recommend that you have. So I would turn on battery saver. So that way what'll happen is when you turn your phone upside down, it goes into this dark screen that's just the Pokemon Go logo. So that way when you're walking around and you have your hands to your side, when your hand is upside down as you're walking, it goes into that dark screen, and it helps to save a little bit of battery. It's not gonna save a lot of battery, but enough so that way your screen isn't just burning, and if you have max brightness on, you're reducing the chances of you putting or damaging your display with burn-in. You know, that takes months or even a couple years for you to notice any burn-in on the display, but it helps to reduce that a lot. The other thing that I would of course have if you don't have it turned on already is Adventure Sync. This allows you to hatch eggs and earn candy with your buddy while the game is closed. Now this one's more of a recommendation, but if you put expanded group transfer, what this lets you do is transfer Pokemon that would normally not or that the game would not allow you to transfer with everything else. So like mythicals or legendaries or things like that, it'll prevent you from being able to transfer those if it's turned off. Now, if it's turned on, so let's say for example, you have the mystery box and you're trying to catch a lot of Meltan. Normally with this feature turned off, you have to go into each individual Meltan's menu and transfer it from there. But if you turn on that expanded group transfer, it'll allow you to just mass select all the Meltan and transfer them all at once. It'll still give you an extra pop-up to ask you like, oh, are you sure you want to transfer? And then you just click yes again, and then they'll all transfer. Everything else I would just leave alone because it's not really important. And by far the most important settings that you can look into are the advanced settings. So here you'll find a couple of the quality of life things that I mentioned earlier. So the first one here is remember last used Pokeball. So what this does is, instead of having it where the game, for example, defaults to the Pokeball, even though the last Pokemon that you caught, you use an Ultra Ball, instead of it defaulting to the Pokeball, it'll default to the Ultra Ball instead. It was the last Pokeball that you used for the last Pokemon. So when you encounter the next Pokemon, it'll be the last Pokeball that you used. I only started doing this recently because I wanted to try to catch more Pokemon in a small period of time, and it didn't make sense for me to always have to switch Pokeballs in almost every encounter just to be able to catch Pokemon easier. But it is very useful for that. I still will use the Pokeball for certain Pokemon, like I mentioned in my second video, where I talk about what kind of Pokemon player I am and how I catch my Pokemon. But having this turned on will be definitely very useful. The next thing that I would have turned on are the enhanced graphics. This would just enhance things like the shadows, the textures, but it also can reduce your battery life a little bit more. But if you have a lot of battery, then it's not really gonna matter. And if you want the game to look as good as it can be, then I would just turn it on. Now, the other thing that a lot of people didn't know about before is that when you first play Pokemon Go, when you first download the app, the frame rate is very choppy. It's like 30 FPS, I wanna say. But there is here, under this menu, the option to use the native refresh rate, which is 60 FPS or if possible, 120 FPS, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure if 120 FPS works with Pokemon Go. At least 60 for sure. This will make the game just look smoother when you're throwing a Pokeball or just any sort of animation, like when you're in a battle, for example, whether it's PvP or a raid or something, the game is going to look a lot smoother. So I would definitely turn this on, but it will reduce your battery life by a little bit. It will drain your battery more. And the final thing is to make sure that you have all downloaded assets, so that way everything is on the game and you don't have to worry about internet for some stuff. Even though the game is pretty much entirely internet-based, there are still things that if you download it, then it'll make it easier for things to load within the game. And then the last thing that I think is also very important for players to know is that you need to use and you should be using your resources very, very wisely. By that I mean save up your Stardust. I have 7.5 million Stardust, which isn't a lot for someone who's been playing Pokemon Go for 10 years, but that's also on me for not using and taking advantage of using the Star Piece during events that give you either double or triple or quadruple, or even more the amount of Stardust when you catch a Pokemon. So whenever you do have events like that, use your Star Pieces. And then events that give you more experience points, use your Lucky Egg. And then for events like Community Day, or for the Safari Zone, or for the Go Fest, use your Incense when you go for a walk, so that way Pokemon can spawn more often and you can catch more Pokemon and hopefully increase your chances of catching shiny Pokemon. I would recommend that you save your Stardust and your candy for leveling up your Pokemon or teaching them new moves, so that way you can use the Pokemon that you want, especially the ones that have maybe certain stats, or because a Pokemon has a certain move, for PvP stuff or raids or whatever else in terms of battling and using the Pokemon in some sort of competitive way. If you don't use them on the right Pokemon, then you end up wasting your resources, and then when you do have a Pokemon of that same type or of that same family, that would be a lot better for the more competitive aspect of Pokemon, then you're not going to have the resources in order to use it in that competitive space. And then you're going to have to spend weeks or months to try to get the resources that you need in order to then use that Pokemon and level it up and teach it the moves and whatnot. Now, that's not to say that you should be wasting all of your Stardust on leveling up Pokemon or trading. Trade Pokemon when you need to if you want to get specific Pokemon, like to fill up a Pokedex, or you just want a specific shiny or whatever it might be. Maybe a Pokemon that learns a specific move and you want to trade with someone that has that Pokemon. But don't waste your Stardust. Use it to level up your Pokemon, and that should be it, aside from the trading. Trading is like the second most important thing. But save them for when you want to level up your Pokemon to use for competitive reasons. If you keep in mind how you use your resources or how you gain more resources, then you'll be a better Pokemon player than most people. But again, it is a game at the end of the day, and you can play it however you want. So waste the Stardust if you want, waste the candy if you want, but if you want to be a good Pokemon player in a, in a resourceful sense or in a competitive sense, by doing those things, you'll be one. Save your resources and use them when you need to or when you have to, not when you want to. So hopefully you guys found this video to be very useful and very informative. And if there was anything that you learned from the video, please let me know down below in the comments what you guys thought. And if you did know about all this stuff, then you tell me if there's anything that I could maybe learn from Pokemon Go that I might not even know. Don't forget to like the video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more from me in the future. And I will see you guys in the next video. Ooh, I don't think I can ever get used to recording in public. Not for a while anyway, because, and it doesn't really show in the video as I was trying to, or maybe a little bit, maybe for the first two tips, but for everything else, I try to make it as natural as possible, but I had to time everything, whenever I said something in the video, because for the first two parts, I'm sitting there and like every couple of minutes there was someone walking by, and I didn't want to talk and say what I had to say as they were walking by, because I just didn't want them to hear that I was talking about Pokemon Go, that I was trying to vlog or something. And there's an interesting thing about that I'll get to here in a minute. But I just wanted to finish saying that once if this ever gets to a point where I don't have to worry about, okay, I'm gonna move somewhere else, like public embarrassment, I guess, for lack of a better word, because I don't find it comfortable to be vlogging in public. For now, I'm gonna do my best to vlog when I can using my camera. I feel more comfortable just walking around with the GoPro because it's a little bit more discreet, but to walk around with the actual camera, which is what I did for this video, it's still not comfortable, and I will continue to just pause and wait until people walk by, as you've seen in some of these clips here. And then for the final segment of the video where I talked about using your resources wisely in Pokemon Go, I didn't get it on video or any audio or anything, but there were these like two little kids, brother and sister, if I had to guess, that they were there with their mom, and I'm trying to film, and then right before I started recording that last clip, the little boy comes up to me and he goes, "Hey, are you a YouTuber?" And word for word, more or less, I go, No. I'm not a YouTuber. I'm just doing a film project." I just straight up lied to a kid just to save face, just so that way I didn't have to feel any sort of like public embarrassment, I guess you could say. But yeah, I wasn't gonna tell that kid that oh yeah, I'm trying to do YouTube. No, come on. That's for me. That's for him to find out in probably a couple years if I'm blowing up as a Pokemon Go YouTuber, and he just happens to like Pokemon Go, and he comes across my videos or across my channel or whatever. But I'm not gonna tell him like, yeah, this is for YouTube. Oh, what's your YouTube channel called? And then he asked for my channel, and I have to give to him and everything. No, I wasn't gonna go through all that. Yeah, sure, that would have been maybe a subscriber, but I'm not gonna go through that right now. So, but yeah, I don't think I can ever get used to filming in public until this channel gets a little bit bigger. So. Okay. Oh, my knee's hurting.